Hey, what's up guys? Tukey here, back again with another episode of my Carolina Hurricanes franchise mode series right here on NHL 19, and today we have yet another big decision staring us in the face. We are currently a playoff team, but barely, which has been tremendously disappointing. So we left the last episode with a lot of questions in mind. What is the future of one Nino Niederreiter? What is the future of one Martin Necas? A lot of decisions to be made. What is the future of Laurent Brossoit? Well, for that one, I'll tell you what the future is. Now, technically, he is what we would define as a broken trade value, right? Now, sure, in real life, a player can go from, say, an 83 to an 88, but it's kind of a broken value, and we know that he's going to plummet back down to earth. He's going to crash back down to reality, unfortunately. Because of that, I am going to label it as a broken overall or a broken trade value. He's going to be staying. I don't want to deal him. I feel like that would be a little bit cheap. Now, in a traditional sense, is it cheap? No, it's a part of the game, but still, it's a little bit cheap, so we're going to hold off on that front. However, we know that we have to make a decision when it comes to the second line because of the acquisition of one Pierre-Luc Dubois. A lot of you guys have been in favor of, play first liners on the second line. I don't want to do that. That's despite, again, we talked about this, that being realistic. It's not how I want to do it. I want the challenge of having to play people within their roles, so we are going to stick to that, which means either Nino Niederreiter or Martin Necas is going to be dealt. And technically, I think we're going to go with the younger option. However, where it gets interesting is, of course, that the Ottawa Senators had some very interesting players on the trade block, including Brady Tkachuk, Colin White, Mitch Marner, and a certain defenseman by the name of Thomas Chabot, which is a very interesting option, in my opinion. Here's the thing, we've talked about this defensively. Heading into next season, a change is going to have to be made anyway because of the improvements of one Adam Fox. Technically, we have 5 top 4 defensemen, so I would want to move somebody. Dougie Hamilton's deal is expiring, but again, re-signing him mid-season seems to be like a good option. Justin Falk is going nowhere, and Jake Bean's been pretty good this season, and if anything, he's a little bit ahead of Fox, despite the fact that Bean would need to be re-signed, but both have been pretty decent this year. So the topic of conversation came up about potentially dealing Slavin and bringing in a defenseman. Technically, I'm allowed to play Adam Fox as a third pairing guy for the rest of the year, but it might not be the worst idea to maybe include him in a deal. Now, I like Slavin. However, using him to get a Thomas Chabot might be too good of a move to pass up on. We have the ability to trade Slavin. He's making $5.3 million for the next 5 years. He has been a 20-point guy for us. Of course, the 30-point seasons would have been real life, so it's really tough because, again, we know we're going to have to make a move here. Our defense next year is probably going to be Hamilton, Falk, and then, who knows, between Slavin, Bean, and Fox, somebody has to go. It's just a matter of when, and of course, factoring in that we have to trade a forward right now, going for a blockbuster, going for a Thomas Chabot might not be the worst move in the world. The backup option is Jacob Bernard-Docker, who could technically step into that third pairing, probably, at least more than likely, alongside Hayden Flurry next season. So I think we might as well go for it. We're going to see if we can work out a trade for one Thomas Chabot. If we are not able to do that, then perhaps getting Jacob Bernard-Docker is the better way to go. In terms of acquiring Mitch Marner, it makes no sense whatsoever. We already got Pierre-Luc Dubois, so that will not be happening. But as far as the trade options are concerned, now unfortunately, actually, no, wait, Nino Niederreiter isn't there. Again, Niederreiter's had a pretty good season, 35 points in 58 games. I'm pretty worried about Neches quite a bit, in fact. But I think we are going to stick with him and give him the opportunity. Not to mention Niederreiter, 1 year left at 5.2. That's a decent amount of salary that we would be clearing right there by dealing these two players and bringing in a defenseman the caliber of Thomas Chabot. Not often you see a team this side of Arizona having their top defenseman on the block. But picking up Thomas Chabot, 4 years at 6.5, is an absolute steal that might be too good to pass up. And while it is a major change and not one that I necessarily thought we'd be making, at least in terms of just how major of a change it is and how early into the series we are, it could be just what the doctor ordered. I mean, technically, they want to trade Chabot. They want Slavin. Niederreiter's an improvement on Nola Chari. I'll double check whether or not they actually need a forward. They ended up drafting Jacob Smallwood, which is amazing. Let's see who we have here. Oof. Okay, so technically, they really don't need another second liner. Boy, do they not need another second liner. That kind of hurts in the whole justification department to get this deal done, because using Nyquist's trade value would be the main way to get this done. Or not Nyquist's trade value, Niederreiter's trade value would be the main way to justify this. I don't exactly want to take on Colin White just to flip him. I mean, a 6-year deal. I like Colin White, but yeah, 6-year deal that is a bit much. Not to mention we would have absolutely no room for him. So we're in a bit of a rough spot. In terms of total forwards, though, yeah, they have way too many goddamn forwards as it is. It's pretty crazy, actually, how many people they have on roster right now. The only way I could truly justify it would be to bring in like Zach Smith, Pajot, even like a Coleman, just to take away a little bit of their depth to, justify this deal. So, I mean, that would be 9 right there, and then we go 10, 11 with Bobby Ryan, 12 with Badan, Norris, and Cobb. I can't believe how many forwards they have. In fairness, this might not be the deal to make. It's just with the way that their team depth is right now, they have so many damn people signed. Their roster's just an absolute mess. That is the only way to put it. And I want to try to do nothing but help their situation. But I mean, my God, they're already in one hell of a situation. So it might be a little bit hypocritical to just try and go through with this deal. But I wouldn't be doing anything to them that they're not already doing to themselves. That roster is a disaster in terms of them just spending way, way too much money on people that they should not be spending money on. Just, call a spade in that regard. Bobby Ryan is, my God, I don't know if that contract got readjusted. It had to have. They must have been well below the salary floor. That is absolutely insane. Wow. At the very least, I want to see how close this is to going through. Not surprising. Let's double check, say a 3rd round pick. I want to see how close this is to going through. Where are we? How far off are we? Pretty far. Like I said, the Slavin trade, it doesn't make sense anyway that they would want to move Thomas Chabot. Out of all of the players that they could move, why are you trying to move Thomas Chabot? The biggest issue here, of course, is that in terms of getting a deal done, Philadelphia was the only other real team outside of Arizona moving Oliver Ekman-Larsson. My problem is that even if I wanted to target Bernard Docker, I could technically do so heading into next season, right? If he was still on the block. He just signed his ELC, which is crazy. And if I had to guess, it's on a pretty good development pattern. Again, he's going to be NHL ready next season, at least 3rd pairing. And if you look at this team, they technically don't need another top 4 defenseman. Not that I need Adam Larson. This is one of the times where I'd love to break my own rules, but I just don't think we can justify that deal with Ottawa. They're an absolute mess. and within the guidelines of the rules that I have made, they're in such a bad state that it makes no sense for me to do anything anyway. So I think the game plan for this year is to keep the defense the same, probably move Slavin at the draft, and have the defense on paper be Hamilton, Falk, Fox, Bean, and then potentially Flurry and someone else. Maybe we just completely rework that third pairing heading in to next year. You never know if someone like a Romanoff or a Luke Martin is going to be ready to go. So the only thing that really changed there is Hamilton getting his new contract. And again, Laurent Brossoit, I'm not saying it's totally unrealistic, but it's totally unrealistic. And I'm not going to take advantage of that trade value. I'm just not. I want to, and trust me, I easily could, but I'm not going to. Which means it pretty much comes down to Nino Niederreiter getting traded. That's really all we can look to do, unfortunately. It's a shame that Ottawa is just an absolute tire fire. But apparently, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Sorry, Sens fans, it's not a shot at you, more a shot at people who run your team. So with that, Dougie Hamilton, let's talk. 5 years at 5.3 would be a steal and a half, in my opinion. If he accepts that, of course, we will have to spin the wheel. In which case, I actually don't have... Oh, God, I just realized I'm in the wrong editing or wrong recording software. But that's okay. We could still technically spin the wheel, and we will. So we'll figure that out. And then again, I know I'm keeping Jake Bean heading into next season as well. So let me quickly... So it would be Dougie at 5 years at $5.3 million. And then Jake Bean is technically an RFA, so we wouldn't have to spin the wheel for him. Oof. Wants a 5-year contract, though. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that makes it a little bit less likely to be traded. Or, makes the deal a little bit less tradable. Yeah, for lack of a better term. I'm going to see if I can knock that down to 3.5 over 5 years. And again, with him being an RFA, I wouldn't have to worry about a no movement or a no trade. That'd still be a pretty good deal for us. It'd be a damn good deal. Hayden Flurry, it's a question as to whether or not I'd even want him to be on the third pair next year. He's well-rounded, very physical player, but as far as who we have in the system, again, is Luke Martin going to be ready? Is like Salo or Romanoff going to take a major step up? I'd say, if anything, only one of them probably would, so I think I'm going to try to re-sign Hayden Flurry as well. I want to drop that down to 2 years at 2.6, and we'll see if we can get him to 2.25. That should work. It's not a bad deal for him on the third pair. It's not ideal. Normally I'd not prefer to pay somebody that much, but we're still looking like a really strong team. So we'll see what happens with the Dougie contract extension. In a way, I kind of hope he rejects. I mean, technically he'd be taking a pay cut, and like I said, odds are this would be Slavin's last year here, and we'll end up moving him. I don't think there was anybody else contract-wise I was really worried about. More than likely not, aside from the fact that, of course, Spencer Knight will be signing his ELC heading into next season. So forward-wise, it's just once Nachos is good to go, Niederreiter gets traded. That's really the only thing that we can do. And as far as other expiring contracts, I mean, we know we're going to bring back Andrei Svechnikov. So I'm going to try to get him for 5 years. Again, I'm only going to adjust the year by one, whether hiring it or lowering it. So we're going to go for that 5-year deal and see if yield 85% trick will pay out here. Don't know if he's proven to be worth a $4.8 million contract yet, but hopefully he continues to grow into it. Julien Gauthier is more than likely a lock for us on the third line. He has 12 goals this year. I can't imagine myself getting rid of him at this point. Although I will drop it down to a 2-year contract for him. So that would be 2.25 if the 85% trick works out for us. Again, both of them are RFAs. Whitfield will be signing his ELC. And then in terms of re-signing Justin Williams, Jordan Martinook, that is a lot less likely. And then someone like Morgan Geekie we can sign later on, although might make sense to sign him now because he might get even better. And if you want to bet on, say, a fourth liner, who will be, promoted from within the system. I'd say there's a really good chance it's going to be him. 2 years at $1 million. I'm okay with that. Everybody else will hold off on signing for now. So the big question is, what happens with one Dougie Hamilton, and whether or not we end up signing him to that 5-year extension in which he'd get a no-movement clause. And then again, once Nichus is back, we end up dealing Nino Niederreiter, as much as that will kind of suck. It's just kind of necessity. Again, how I wish the Sens weren't a complete shit show, but by the rules that we have in this series, I can't deal him to that team. They're just not a fit. So we'll continue onward here. I imagine that we're going to be hearing from one Douglas Hamilton. It's a decent shot there at that happening. And let's see, can we beat the Rangers? Hamilton actually rejected. Okay, we'll revisit that later then. Hayden Flurry signs, Svechnikov signs, Gauthier, Jake Bean, and Morgan Geekie all sign. Be the 85% trick. Austin Zarnik, if he had 1 year left, I would claim him, but I don't need a depth forward for 2 years, so we will revisit the potential Hamilton re-signing at a later date as we end up losing to the New York Rangers and the Anaheim Ducks. Right. I mean, we weren't on the best run of form to begin the month. Not exactly on the best run of form moving forward. We do beat Washington 3-1. See what we can do here. Deadline on Friday. Let's see what we're dealing with. I don't know if this is going to be the alert about Nichus or if this is going to be the trade deadline alert. Maybe even a scouting update, perhaps. I could see that being the case. Let's find out. Oh boy, this is taking a while. Why? Who knows? But it is. It's taking forever. So long. What the hell is happening? Are you going to crash on me? Are you just going to sit here and load for a really, really long time? Who knows? Okay, this is ridiculous at this point. Are you serious? What the hell? I mean, if I have to sit through this, then you don't. You can just skip ahead. Oh, thank the Lord. Matt Philippe. Everybody thank Matt Philippe for holding us up, apparently, because that took 6.5 years. Let's sim to deadline day against Florida, and we'll double check some options here, especially because we know a trade has to happen. Oh, what is up with the sim speeds right now? Like, they've never been great, but good Lord, thank you. Did we beat the Islanders? We did not. We do at least get a pity point, but not exactly a banner month for the Hurricanes. So we'll play the Florida Panthers on deadline day. Similar records. As it stands, we are still a playoff team, but not by much. If we take a look at the roster, it's just a matter, as it always is, of making the right move at the right time. Brossois has been human, still pretty damn good. Nedeljkovic, again, as a backup, just hasn't really had it this year. Slavin and Hamilton will stay a pairing. Dougie's had a pretty good year. Bean, again, has done really well with Justin Falk. Flurry and Adam Fox, not exactly a great pairing, apparently. We'll make a change, putting them on opposite sides. We'll see if that is able to spark anything, but that's a little bit disappointing. David Cotton, 13 goals on the fourth line. Not too bad. 18 points for Eetu Luotsarainen. Jordan Martinook with 16 points. That is a very effective fourth line for us. Julian Gauthier still with just 12 goals, but doing all right. Jordan Stahl approaching 30 points. Justin Williams has been okay, not tremendous, but it's all right. Svechnikov is at 20 points. What a disappointment he's been this year. Teuvo on 42 points, and then again, Niederreiter, 37 points, but something has got to give. Sebastian Aho, Nicholas Backstrom, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, only 16 points in 33 games is okay, but the top line is not exactly gelling as I would have hoped. Of course, there is no limitation on trading Dubois. He was an RFA, in fact, so I don't know if we want to talk about moving him now. I suppose that is technically an option, but when Backstrom's movable at the end of the year and he's also 33 years old, I think that's a decision that's better suited for the offseason between who moves between Backstrom and Dubois, even if we move Niederreiter. Because say then we have Natchez there, there is a chance, of course, that our unsigned guy is going to be potentially worthy of second line time heading into next season. I mean, obviously we've left him unsigned so far, and whether or not that works out, who's to say? But I mean, Whitfield's already an 82. There's a really good chance he's going to be second line ready, and immediately. He has 70 points in 46 games in the U.S. Development League. There's a really good chance of him being second line ready heading into next season. So it does just come down to whether or not any last-second opportunities have kind of presented themselves. Goaltending will stay the same. We're sticking with Brossois. And offensively, I mean, there's really not much we'd want to do. I mean, technically a third-line guy who's a little bit better than Williams could be worth it. But in terms of how that would shake up the morale of the team, it's probably not worth it, and at this rate, it's probably better off for us to just sit here and wait for him to retire, in all honesty, which could indeed be the case sooner rather than later. We'll actually keep that by overall, but nobody there on Calgary that I'd want, at least in terms of a long-term replacement for who we already have. I can't imagine that the trade blocks have changed up that much. Suppose there is an outside chance of it, however. And right now, I think the trade blocks are looking pretty much the same. I imagine Ottawa's is looking the same as well. With the exception of Bernard Docker being gone. And it makes me wonder if they took him off the list or if they found a landing spot for him. This is a really good question. So, it's just finding a deal for Nino. Finding a deal for Nino. Also, we kind of need 2 draft picks ideally, but again, if we're going to be making trades at the draft, we'll be fine. But at least get 1 pick back for Nino. I think Nino has to be the guy, like we've discussed. I mean, it's him or Natchez. Nino's doing well, but 2 years left at 5.2. We can put that money elsewhere, especially considering some contracts are coming due. It'll be nice to have a little bit more money to work with in free agency. So it's just a matter of where we send Nino, preferably to a Western team that's actually looking to contend. Winnipeg isn't exactly killing it, but if they have anybody interesting, which they really don't, I think Johnson, Sampoulin, or again Jamie Drysdale, who I cannot imagine they'd be willing to give up. Samuel Poulin, they might be willing to give up. That might not be the worst pickup option if I can make it happen, but the cap isn't going to work for us. So, who else? Boston, I mean, again, preferably a Western team would be best. And, I mean, Edmonton, you're not interested, though. Los Angeles is listed as a rebuilder. Minnesota's listed as a rebuilder. Nashville would be slightly over, but we'll still go talk to Nashville. We might be able to get that deal to work. Is that Anthony Honka? It must be. It's just, the overall is totally off, but that's certainly not who we would want. Preds are looking to move that first rounder, though. We would have to take somebody back, but getting a first-round pick for Nino Niederreiter would not be a bad bit of business. And in terms of who we would get back, obviously we'd want it to be on a 1-year deal. Somebody like Nick Bonino, I mean, technically that would cause complications, and I'd have to flip him. So that wouldn't be great. Austin Watson, listed as a 4th-line guy. That doesn't really help. Haluka's a 4th-line guy. Yeah, I don't really see how we're going to be able to make this work, Nashville. Damn these rules that we have implemented to actually make this somewhat tough. So a Western team doesn't appear as though that's going to be in the cards for us, so we'll take a look at any Eastern Conference teams. Cole Lind. I'm not totally against getting Cole Lind. He is still listed as an other forward, though, in Ish Hakov. Right. I'm not sure how good Cole Lind is at this point, But if we go Coland and a draft pick for Nino Niederreiter, I'm not against it. However, the Islanders don't want to trade one of their 3 first-round picks, despite having 40 wins, because why would you go for it? Ottawa, we know, doesn't work. Philadelphia, we talked about you before. Do you actually need a forward? Suppose that's the first question. That is, I mean, nope, you really don't. Oh, you really don't. All right, so right now, beggars can't be choosers. We just have to try to find a landing spot for Nino because he has to go. So it's going to be... Nope, not there. Vegas. I know technically you're not really in the running, but man, nope, you don't need any help in the top 6. Winnipeg, again, we know pretty much won't work. Anaheim, the Dukes. What do we got? We got no space. No space whatsoever. Boston. I'll make this trade. Why not? Within the Eastern Conference. Good Lord, Jake DeBrusk became a first-line guy. All right, Buffalo. Buffalo. There's no way. I mean, technically, you could use another top 6 guy. You have all the third liners in the world, though. Right. You have all the third liners in the world. A lot of them are on expiring deals. I mean, technically, Kreider's doesn't have that extension yet. Gergenson's, Connolly, all on expiring deals. I can kind of sort of make a plea, but considering you don't want to trade draft picks, how difficult is it to trade Nino Niederreiter? The Islanders, the Wild, they didn't seem to have too much trouble. But in terms of staying within the rules, we're having just a bit of trouble. Just a spot of trouble. That's okay. We'll figure it out in due time. Technically, the Blue Jackets could use another top 6 option. Are they in the market for it, though? They are. They have our first-round pick, thanks to the Dubois trade, or the Dubois signing. So it makes me wonder whether or not I could pull this off to get Columbus's first-round pick, which, in fairness, I'd rather just go for ours. Probably. Maybe. Well, how close in value are we on that? Trade block's too far off. I don't really have anything else I'd prefer to give up in this deal to make it worth it, right? But a first-round pick for Nino Niederreiter at the deadline is still not a bad bit of business if we can get it to go through. And again, due to the cards that have been dealt to us, I think it's what we need to do. Can we get our own first-round pick back? I'm going to have to give up a tiny bit, which sucks. I'd rather give it up in next year's draft. So Nino and a 6th for our own first-round pick back. Will that go through? Nope, because this game doesn't know what just a touch means. How about our 4th-round pick next year? Nino and a 4th for our first-round pick. Oh, my God. Of course. Here we go. Oh, no. We'd have to put Stenlund. Would you? Would you, though? Would you even? Would you need to? Would you need to? Well, maybe if you stopped carrying so many goddamn forwards, it wouldn't be an issue. Unfortunately, unless they want to... I'll take on Riley Nash as a depth forward. I'll take on Riley Nash all day. I'll take on that salary for Riley Nash. You give me that first-round pick. That should be a fair deal right there. Like, technically, Riley Nash should be negative value for them, right? He really should be. Like, I'm doing them a favor by balancing out the cap just a little bit more. This should go through. This is... Oh, I hate this trade system sometimes. All right, Columbus isn't going to work either. Dallas, what do you have? You don't really have any firsts. You have one next year. That's cool. Can I justify sending you? Nope. Oh, Columbus, you miserable cretins. The Florida Panthers. I mean, yeah, I can kind of justify not really sending you somebody else. Oof. This is rough. Los Angeles, I don't even care that you're listed as rebuilders. You're in it, and let's be honest, you don't want to give up. You're Los Angeles. You always go for it. Jesus. All right, if anything, this would be the equivalent of a goddamn mercy killing. So I'll tell you what. I don't want Leipzig or Kovalchuk because technically they don't do anything for me. But I will gladly, if I have to, take a Wagner, a Scherbach, or a Lucas Wallmark. We'll reacquire him. Of course you don't want to trade your first. Of course you don't. Okay. Methinks we're screwed. Can I send Nino Niederreiter? Nope. Can I send Niederreiter to Montreal? Maybe. Who do the Habs have for forwards? That's the real question. Who do you got? The answer is, you got some options, but maybe there's room to make something happen here because otherwise I'd never be able to make a trade because of how bad the AI is at managing their team. If I can get the Habs first next year and just take on a depth roster player for the rest of this season, I'd be happy. So let's see if we can get us a nice depth forward. It'll either be Lehkonen, Fast, or Sobotka. And it should probably be Jesper Fast. Well, Sobotka's not on that bad of a deal, but I'm not against taking on Sobotka. Montreal would still be over. Really? What if I take on Jesper Fast as well? Please? For the love of God? I'm not retaining cap. Okay, well, we tried. And then Nashville, who will not have the cap to pull this off and probably have way too many goddamn half-decent forwards. Technically I can justify it. They do want to trade their first-round pick as well. They'd be over the cap, not by much, but please just tell me there's somebody that you have on the block who's worth a little bit of money that I can take back for dirt cheap on a one-year deal. Nick Bonino, again, doesn't really help me. Austin Watson doesn't help me. I know that we technically already checked, but there might be somebody. Anthony Richard could be the dude. You never know. He's not going to be because he's on a two-way deal. Okay. Ottawa, are you still in the market of trading Thomas Chabot? You are. Cool. Let me just see your forwards. Jesus Christmas. Again, why do you have so many second-line guys? Why? Why? How the hell am I going to trade Niederreiter? I might not be able to because of the cap. I might be forced here to trade Natchez. I might not have an opportunity. I know the Rangers don't want him, but it's damn, I have to try. I need a team that is willing to trade a first-round pick like the New Jersey Devils. It's just whether or not I can justify that trade. Jesus Christ. Kyle Palmieri's up to a first line, and they have Braden Point. Okay. Won't question that at all. The debacle known as trying to trade Nino Niederreiter. Let me tell you. Dallas, I think I already talked to you. You weren't going to work. We'll go back to the bottom. Winnipeg wasn't going to work, right? That was the issue there. Wasn't going to work with I don't know who the hell to try and make this trade with. I have no idea. Vancouver, they have no first-round picks over the next few years. Toronto. I mean, how stacked are you still? I imagine very, and that is the correct answer because Jeremy Bracco turned into a beast. The easy thing to do here is going to be to trade Natchez. I hate to say it, but it is the truth. That is going to be the much, much easier way to get this done. Especially, too, because of the way you get in trouble for flipping players in this game. Not saying it's wrong, just saying it happens. Pittsburgh. Let's make this happen. I guarantee it's going to be, well, we'd have to put this guy on waivers. I don't care. Pittsburgh, let's make this happen. Who is the worst guy you actually have on roster? It's apparently Nikita Gusev. And calling Nikita Gusev bad is subjective. So they'd still be over. Okay. Oh, Pittsburgh. How are we going to solve this issue, friendos? Because something has to give. Nemesnikov is a depth guy. Is he making enough? I don't think they would. I don't think they would be over the cap. I think that's a cop-out by this game. Is there a defenseman that I can take to try and make all of your dreams come true? Please tell me Erik Goodbranson. I will take on Erik Goodbranson for the rest of the year. Please. I'd rather just take on Goodbranson. Niederreiter and a first. We take back Goodbranson for the rest of the year, but we at least get rid of Nino. They don't want him, but technically they could use him. Will it go through? Oh my God. All right. What else do I have to add to this? Is a 4th round pick next year enough? Sweeten it just a touch. I will sweeten your jaw with chin music. Nino and a 3rd for a 1st and Goodbranson. Okay. I think my hand's been forced, and I think we have to trade Martin Necas. I fail to see any other option. With the money that a lot of these teams are looking for, or with the cap situations that a lot of these teams are in, we are basically screwed. And it's only gonna end up being a done deal if we can make this happen. You know, and if the other teams can afford it, essentially. So, yeah. So a team like Nashville, did they want to trade their pick? They did. All right. I'm not seeing any other way. Again, this is the deal that would have been done months ago. I can't say I feel tremendous about it, but it has to be done. The only other alternative is trading Pierre-Luc Dubois right now, but again, I think he's our number 1 center, and we trade Backstrom in the offseason. We're not allowed to trade him right now. So I think this is, unfortunately, and I mentioned that this could be the case, this is unfortunately the consequence for our decision to sign Pierre-Luc Dubois, is that we cannot find a perfect match for one Nino Niederreiter, and as a result, we're having to give up a half-decent prospect instead of Niederreiter here at the deadline to fit within our rules. Columbus, for whatever reason, their pick has a little bit more value. And in terms of whether or not they need said player, I'm fairly certain that they did. Yes, they do. And on the trade block, I'm not against trying to get Tessier, although I don't know for sure what his potential is going to be, although I can assume. Is this going to go through? It is not. What if I add like a 4th round pick to it? Why not? Is this going to go through? Please. Alright, we take Tessier out. Necas for a 1st rounder. Again, I'm only allowed to trade for 1 draft pick at most. Hate to do it. Had to be done, unfortunately. Again, that is just the consequence for acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois. We thought Nino Niederreiter might be the sacrifice to make that happen. That was ultimately not the case because you saw I tried everything I could to find the perfect trade for one Nino Niederreiter, and unfortunately, it just didn't exist. So now, we wait to see how this team does. We're still a strong team, 33 wins on the year. Niederreiter was still doing well. This team should still be capable of finding success here in the regular season and hopefully in the playoffs. It's just whether or not they live up to their potential. Of course, the biggest issue here is the the problems we're going to have in the upcoming offseason, which, call it a hunch. Beautiful menu lag there. Call it a hunch. I think that's going to be a routine. That's going to be a routine issue throughout this entire series, just due to the rules. Rules. So Nedeljkovic is still terrible for us this year. Brossois is doing a little bit all right. Just a little bit okay. And then again, defensively, that third pairing's just not really getting it done. But I am liking the top four, although Slavin hasn't done much, and it makes me wonder whether or not Jake Bean would be better with that second line, or that top line time. And again, these lines are basically locked in. Like, there's really nothing to change. It's just whether or not this team is good enough to get it done. I am going to go best lines in case it changes up the power play or the penalty kill. And of course, Luotz-Derainen will be brought back in. But aside from that, I mean, yeah, our lines are pretty much locked in. And then defensively, we'll keep it as is. Let's move forward. Let's do this. We have 10 games left this season. It's going to be wild card or bust, unfortunately, because the rest of the division has done very, very well, unfortunately for me, as Trevor Carrick is back from injury and Roland McCown goes down. So there's his replacement. And Jake Bean goes down to injury. We'll see Tim Heed suit up for the Maine Hurricane squad, which, you know, it could be a worse situation. Robin Salo's also healthy. And we're not exactly firing on all cylinders right now, are we? 4 straight losses. There is a realistic chance that we could have brought in Nick Backstrom and Pierre-Luc Dubois only to subsequently miss out on the postseason. As batshit insane as that statement sounds, we are looking at that as a possibility right now, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. But depending on what the wild card situation looks like, that could be the truth of the matter. Oh boy, let's see. We'll see if we can beat Pittsburgh. We end up doing so, 4-3 in overtime. 38 wins on the year. It's going to be down to the wire as to whether or not we make the playoffs. Right now, we are currently out. It takes 85 points. We're out on tiebreaker. We need to win out or we're screwed. We already know that, again, there's no chance in hell Aho is leading this team in game-winning goals. So we've already failed that goal for the season, or the player goal for the season. Our goal for the season in terms of getting off to a hot start with Backstrom at the helm was thankfully successful. But as it is, that first pick in the draft that we have is going to have to go again to the USA East region. And unfortunately, the draft might be sooner rather than later, which, again, absolute disaster if that's the case. We have 4 games left this year. We're at 39, 30, and 9. What a record. What a record. Currently out of the playoffs. 3 points back of Tampa. We need to win out, or after all of this, all of the decision-making, all of the player movements, we could very well miss the playoffs. An overtime loss to the Habs is not going to help. Jacob Slavin goes down to a concussion. He's going to be out for a month, which, yet again, yikes. Yikes. How are we looking? How are we looking? 2 points out, and the Red Wings have a game at hand. If we lose to Pittsburgh, there is a good chance we're going to miss out. Now, the Charlotte Checkers have made the playoffs, but will the Hurricanes themselves? Can we beat Pittsburgh? No, we can't, and I think we're out. Detroit's on 92 points. We need to win our final game of the season against Columbus and hope that the Red Wings botch it, or we miss the playoffs. Detroit's on 92 points. We have to win. We have to win, and they have to lose. Or despite picking up Nick Backstrom, we're going to miss the postseason. Despite Laurent Brossoit going up to an 88 overall, we could miss the postseason. It comes down to the last day of the season. Game 82, first period against the Blue Jackets. We do get 2 goals. Sebastian Aho gets them both. Huge start to the game. Second period, we make it 3 with Jordan Martinook. And in the third period, well, the Blue Jackets battled back a little bit, but it was too little too late. 5-2 is the final. We did our job. Now it's just a matter of whether or not Detroit lost. Are the Blue Jackets going to prevent us, even though technically they didn't? We're out of the playoffs. The Carolina Hurricanes have missed the playoffs. I cannot believe this. Laurent Brossoit with a 920. But we missed the playoffs. I know this defense on paper isn't amazing, and of course Tim Heed's in there due to the injury, but it's not a god-awful defense. And that top 6 should have been more than capable. It's a catastrophic failure for this team to have not made the playoffs. That is the only way to describe it. Teravainen led the way with 60 points in 79 games, but that is nowhere near good enough. Aho had 1 game-winning goal. Only 51 points. 49 points for Backstrom. Niederreiter with 43 points. Svechnikov only put up 32 points. Dubois had 28 points in 58 games. That's still not a good enough pace for him. Tavo's going nowhere. Aho's probably going nowhere. But Backstrom is now free game to wheel and deal. Pierre-Luc Dubois is free game to wheel and deal. It's just a matter of how much we're going to kind of press the reset button on this. We know there's going to be a trade defensively. It's probably going to be Slavin. We'll try to re-sign Hamilton. We have 1 more year of Brossoit and Delkovich until Spencer Knight's good to go. But what an absolute disaster for this team. As Alex Ovechkin puts up 101 points, 59 goals. He, McDavid, and Hall all broke the 50-point mark. Letang led defenseman in points. And for rookies, Vasily Podkolzin actually beats Alexis Lafreniere, which is shocking. This is going to go down as one of the most disappointing seasons, I think, in any franchise mode I've ever had. It is outrageous to think that we just missed the playoffs. Vancouver, St. Louis, Anaheim, Edmonton, Colorado, Calgary, heads up Flames fans, Nashville and Dallas in the East, Boston, Tampa, Florida, Toronto, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, the Islanders, and the Flyers. And a lot's going to change for this team with another busy offseason ahead.